Hey guys, Alicia from Morning Hawk Creations here. Today is going to be a longer tip, trick, and tutorials, as today we're going to be going over color. Stick around. Hey guys, as I said, today we're going to be going over color, and this can be a monster topic to go over, and for some it's really easy, and for others it's really difficult. One of the resources that I want to recommend that you guys are able to pick up in your local bookstore, because you guys know I'm a big fan of books, is this color swatch mixing book. And what this does is this goes over 12 basic colors, from cadmium red light, burnt sienna, got raw sienna in there, yellow ochre, some of the other reds and blues, and there's a thialkane green is in there. I don't want to go over all of them. But what this does is this effectively builds your color wheel on a page so that you can understand the specific interactions. See, I'm filming by myself, so I can't really zoom in and give you guys like the cheat on this. There you go. So this is how, let's see how this goes. This is cad yellow and thialkane green and how these two interact. Okay, when mixed in different ratios. The thing I really like about this book is that it'll show you how to mix up an absolute black. So in order to get black in your natural colors, you would mix raw sienna with, I believe it's ultramarine blue. Yes, it is. Dickadoo. Okay, so it's going to show you how to mix up all these different various shades and tones and colors, and then it takes everything and mixes it with white. And the important thing is about that is that while you can mix ultramarine blue and raw sienna in order to get black, in order to get shades, in order to get tints, you have to add white. So as you see on the pages, zoom in, it gives you a shade or a tint for every single color value that it makes here. So it gives you, see, raw sienna and raw sienna, ultramarine blue, and it gives you all the different steps, and then all the tints all the way to white. Okay, so this is kind of like making your color wheel with 12 different basic colors, and then always having it as a reference book. So if you don't do all that much color work, or you need help with your color work, this is a wonderful tool, and it's like a handy dandy reference you'll always have. It's good for every medium that you're possibly going to work in, if you can effectively color match your colored pencils to your paints, because they have a lot of colored pencils that are just pre-mixed colors. It's kind of like the acrylics craft supply store when you're talking acrylic paints to... Okay guys, so now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of mixing color. Okay, there's a lot to cover, and I'm not going to get into every little detail. I'm going to put a link for another gentleman who's got a video on YouTube that goes a little bit more in depth on different color mixing. We're going to get into our first weekly tip and trick. I like to use Ziploc bags with my acrylics. It makes for a good wet palette, and by wet palette I mean you can put your paints down and you can keep them for an extended period of time. So this palette I actually made up a few days ago when I started filming this tutorial, and then I actually tried executing what I wanted to say, and it didn't go very well. So I packed it up, took a break, and tried it again. So it's a few days later, and Ziploc bag keeps the air out. If you can tell, and you can tell on the so you can tell on the Quinacridone Violet that I've got a little bit of substance in here, which looks a little jelly, and what it is this in this case is blending medium. What I typically use on an acrylic palette in order to keep the life of the paint is extender, and what that is effectively is the liquid medium that they float the pigment in. So this keeps my palette nice and wet, and this keeps my palette nice and fresh. So my two big tips for today are Ziploc bags. These are gallon-sized bags, so about 20 will run you about $1.50. And then for a long stay on your palette, blending medium. However, blending medium is going to make your pigment float, so it's going to put a layer in. Otherwise, extender works really great. You can buy both of them at a craft or hobby store. In fact, you can even buy them at Walmart. And they will extend the life of your pigments when you're doing acrylic painting for several days. Okay, so let's get into color. So this is our typical color wheel, and now since I couldn't figure out how I wanted to phrase this, I went online, looked at a whole bunch of different tutorials to see how other people were phrasing color mixing, because it's a really complex thing. You can spend a whole semester in college learning about color mixing and still be really, really confused when you come out of it. When I was in grade school, or primary school, I was always told, and a lot of us were always told, that your primary mixing colors were red, yellow, and blue. Those are the three colors that you can't mix. Okay? So we were always told that red and yellow make orange, and yellow and blue make green, and blue and red make purple. Okay, well that all makes sense. And then, my freshman year in high school, I had to start making color wheels. And the colors didn't always mix the way I wanted to. And it had to do with the kinds of reds that you're using. Okay? So as I said, there's another gentleman whose video I'm going to link to. And the other thing in high school that didn't go the way I wanted to was that when you're talking about light, and light on your monitor, when you mix, and the science of light in color, the presence of all color in light is white light. So that's why when you're outside and you show a prism, you get a breakdown of all the colors in there because it refracts the light. Okay, well, I can accept that, but why doesn't that apply to pigments? Well, it kind of does. And it kind of does in the fact that they'll absorb all the color and reflect one. Okay, I can accept that. So how does that help me in my color mixing? Well, when we were all told red, yellow, blue, and red and blue make purple, we were kind of impressed that it was a warm red and not a medium red that we were mixing with. So you kind of wind up with this funky kind of purple, and depending on where you get your red, your reds and your purples and your blues and every other color in the rainbow are always slightly different depending on who you buy your pigments from, what brand you're buying, and what batch they come out of. So how do you consistently get the same color? Okay, so if we haven't gone back to this, I'm going to go back to this book here. Alright, now this is the Color Swatch Mixing Book. Okay, now this is going to have 12 colors to go from. Okay, now in saying that, it is my understanding that either in the UK or all of Europe, they are trying to get rid of or have banned the cadmium colors. Okay, this has caused an uproar because cadmium is a core mixing color. As you can see, there's cadmium red light, cadmium yellow, and I'm pretty sure, nope. So we got the cadmium red light in this book, and we have cadmium yellow light. The good news is that you can get away with a full color wheel without using cad red and cad yellow. The fuck? Okay, you can do it. It's harder, but you can do it. So your printer on your computer, which is standard inkjet printer doesn't use red, yellow, blue. It uses cyan, magenta, and yellow. Well, the first time I bought a 3-color ink cartridge, I went, why is it not red? It's supposed to be red, this is magenta. I got really confused. And yet, I got really good color out of that printer. So now I'm going in and studying color theory and color mixing for, I believe what it is, 4 times. So, the true colors that you should be mixing with are actually a cyan. So, your primary blue isn't a royal blue, as I was taught in grade school. Your true blue is closer to a cerulean blue, or cerulean, depending on how you want to spell that. Then you're looking at Quinacridone Violet, and then you're looking at Yellow Light Hansa. Now on this color chart, because I haven't bought one in probably 15 years, this one says Crimson Primary Red. Well, this one's a little bit warmer than what ideally you want to use if you can't get a hold of cad reds. So, you can use Quinacridone Red, Yellow Light Hansa, and Cerulean Blue as your core colors. Now, all 3 of those colors are in this color swatching mixing book. Okay? The other core colors that are in here, so you have the Quinacridone Violet, the Cad Red, the Cad Yellow Light, Yellow Hansa Light, Cerulean Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Yellow Ochre, Raw Sienna, Thylacine Blue, Thylacine Green, and Burnt Sienna. Your opaque white is so that you can get your tints of your color. Other than that, you're going from, on this page in particular, I don't like that I can do this. Okay, so on this page, we're going from Hansa Yellow. Okay, so this is your yellow up here, so this is your core yellow, to Cerulean Blue, so that's over here. Okay, so we're on your primary triad. Okay, so in there you wind up with your bright greens, and most of these colors are semi-transparent, which it will tell you in the descriptors, which is why I like this book so much. Okay, is whether or not it's transparent or opaque. Now, in my usual palette for when I'm doing when I'm working with pet portraits, I will keep Yellow Ochre, Raw Sienna, Burnt Umber, Ultramarine Blue, Cerulean Blue, Cad Yellow, and Thylacine Green. I will cut it down from 12. Now you can mix these colors back and forth to make black. And I believe it is, where is it? Not Yellow Ochre. I believe it's, yeah, it's Raw Sienna and Ultramarine Blue to get black. Okay? So you don't necessarily have to put black in your palette. It will make a richer painting if you're not going straight with black, because it can dull down your colors. So you can use this book in order to learn how to mix in your blacks and mix in your tints and shades. That having been said, there's a lot of... I've had a couple of days to look at some of these videos. You have a lot of videos out there and a lot of different systems that'll teach you how to mix every shade under the rainbow and every system in the book that has some 40-some shades in it. In my opinion, the less colors you mix, the less core colors you mix, the less dependent you are on all these spin-off colors. If you look at crafting paint, it comes in 246 million different colors, and some of which are really creepily titled something like Santa's Flesh and Red Fire Engine, and all it is just something that you can mix yourself just by disciplining yourself on getting your color wheel down and your and learning how your pigments interact with each other. So you do, like, this is the Quinacridone Violet. Okay, so it's kind of a cool purpley pinky red. Okay. And if I were to come at it with my yellow light Hansa, and I am using the blending medium, which is why I'm getting it. It's coming off so light. In fact, I could probably add a little bit of pigment here. Just a little worried about overwhelming things here. You can see how these two kind of interact and kind of make your warmer colors for your warmer reds. So this is going to take you into your warmer reds and your warmer oranges. Okay, now that having been said, there is a difference that you will find in your results in mixing on paper and mixing on your palette. Okay, and this is really important. This is what happens when you mix it on your palette. You can get a breakdown of color. You can, if you work it enough, get a smooth transition. Okay, if you mix it in your palette, okay, now I'm going to show you this mess. Okay, so this I made up a couple days ago in order to kind of break down how this kind of works. Okay. So I went from the Cerulean Blue to the Quinacridone Violet and Hansa Yellow and kind of worked it around. And yeah, you get some browns in here, okay? If I'm working on a portrait of a horse or a dog or a cat that has a substantial amount of brown in it or chestnut coloring in it, I will break down and just put raw sienna or burnt sienna in my palette rather than continue to risk mixing it and frustrating myself. So it is a cheat to kind of put your pre-mixed colors. And it is possible to buy from the same supplier and get a different batch that doesn't match the color that you want. I have in the past bought from Liquitex 2 burnt siennas and had them be 2 different colors. One of them was 50% off because I think what happened was that they put a raw sienna in a burnt sienna tube and sent it out because it matched my burnt sienna better, but it could have just very well been a polluted batch. Okay, so back to mixing on the paper versus mixing in the palette. Okay, so here we were trying to go for a more crimson color. Okay, so mixing in the palette a little bit more. And you can get up with shades right then and there. So I mean, this is a very watered down version of it. I can get some little water in here. Grab a towel. I guess it would depend on whether or not you want to go with, you need that really core color to come out right away, or if you need to blend into it. Whether or not you mix on the paper or if you mix in the palette. And that is something that they don't tell you on all of these color mixing classes. Okay, so one other thing that I want to get into, and that is, we'll give you some terms here. Okay, so you have primary, so it's your first 3. So whether or not you're using red, yellow, blue, or if you're using yellow light Hansa, cyan, and violet, those are your core colors that you want to mix. And really the variation is whether or not you're using red or if you're using a violet color. Okay. Those are your core colors that you don't want to, that all of your other colors stem from. Okay. Then you have your secondary colors. Okay. So those happen when you mix an equal 50-50 mix of like yellow and red, or yellow and violet, blue and yellow, blue and violet, or blue and red. And so those would be your orange, green, and true purple. Okay? Then you're going to have your teetery colors. That gets into your brighter green, your bluer green, your yellow or orange, your red orange. Okay, so those are your tertiary colors. So that goes from your secondary colors to your primary colors. So you have that other shade. Okay? Now, excuse me. When you're talking about graying a color down and you want this, if it's photography, you're talking about, bringing down the saturation or the intensity of the color. In painting, they call it the purity of color. In photography, saturation has to refer to the intensity of the color. Okay? What you want to do in order to get a color to be quote-unquote less pure, and my favorite example is yellow with purple. If you use colors that are directly across or complementary colors, what they will do is create a gray color. So in order to create a true purple, I am at the point of mixing the cerulean blue with the violet, with the quinacridone violet, to get a true purple. Blah, 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 blah. I can talk today. And one of the other things that I like about mixing in the palette versus mixing on paper is that it immediately shows the effect, versus right now this kind of looks a little muddy. So if I mix on paper, that's the effect that I get on paper. However, if I do this on the palette, this is going to show a little bit better because I'm going to get pure color right away. A little more purple, a little bit more purple, a little more purple, alright, a little bit more. That's good. That's a little bit. Oops, too much blue. There it is. There it is. There it is. There's my gray. Alright. Okay. So if you're mixing your complementary colors across from each other, purple and yellow will make gray. Red and green will make gray. If you mix all of your primary colors together, you get brown. So if I mix, actually I can stay away from the Quinacridone Violet and go with blue, yellow, so now we got the green kicking, and we can get into the red. And depending on where you have your strongest color laying, and this is why I say it's not above, I'm not above pulling out a tube of burnt sienna for a commissioned piece, rather than play with one part of an animal looks more orange than the other because one day I'm having a really good color mixing day and the other day I'm not. it looks a little bit muddy compared to the pure colors. However, when I thin it out so you can see through the color, you can kind of see how it's coming off very brown, like so. Kind of like a gray brown. Okay, so those are some nice quick tips and tricks on color mixing. So again, this way we've incorporated all of the 3 different base colors, whether or not you've learned red, yellow, blue when you mix on red, yellow, blue, or if you mix on violet, yellow, and cyan. And of course, the one that I didn't hit on, that's because none of you are TVs, but your TV uses it, is the one that your TV uses is red, green, blue, in order to create the different shades and values on your TV and on your monitors. So that's color mixing. One of these days we're going to go over color composition and how hue, saturation, and vibrancy help to play parts in your artwork. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.